Remember when Renault made a Megane with an arse so big and ugly that it was forced to make adverts like this?
I see you, baby, shaking that ass, shaking that ass, shaking that ass.
Well, Renault can't do that anymore because this ass is pretty.
Yep, Renault has had enough of making pig ugly cars, so the Megane is all broad shoulders and swoopy LEDs and that. But there are some things that Renault just can't let go.
Yep, the Megane still shakes an ass. Yours. Now, lower powered versions of the Megane don't have this problem, but the GT here is tuned by Renault Sport. And as we all know, Renault Sport loves to pummel a driver's ass with a nice stiff suspension setup. Now, it might have Renault Sport badges plastered all over it, stiff suspension and more than 200 horsepower, but the problem is it just doesn't feel that quick. It feels a bit heavy, a bit laboured, a bit warm. Poor exemplar, there's a tailpipe here, but there's no tailpipe here. It's not all fakery though. I mean, it's got launch control like a supercar, very useful. And once you've launched, there are driving modes. Hit this RS button and the steering gets stiffer, and the engine gets louder, and the automatic gearbox will let you hit the rev limiter, which is nice. Oh yes, and there's something else. The GT has rear wheel steering, which does exactly what it says on the pretendy tin. What it means is that the rear wheels steer very slightly in the opposite direction to the front wheels below 50 miles an hour. It makes the steering really sharp. Feels a bit weird at first though, a bit like, but then it becomes a bit like, and then you're at less risk of crashing into the gatepost in your driveway when you're parking.
Plus, you can tell people that your hatch basically has the same sort of steering as a Porsche 911 Turbo.
And not that much more rear seat space. It's no Renault Espace.
Same for the boot. If a Ford Focus boot is this many cartons of Umbongo, the Megane is one more, about a third bigger. But somehow it just doesn't feel that much bigger. There are genuine storage problems in the cabin though. You can't fit anything into the glove box because it's so tiny, and the rest of the cabin ain't much better.
Now, one thing that is massive in here is this. Now, until recently, screens this size were the preserve of fancy cars like the Volvo XC90 or the Tesla Model S, but now, for a reasonable price, glorious long screen can be yours.
Reasonable-ish. It's standard in the GT car here, but you have to go quite high up the Megane range to get it as standard. At the rental car end of the range, you'll either get a smaller touchscreen or, imagine this, buttons and dials. This big boy is definitely worth paying for because, as this floating hand is demonstrating, it is great. And when you're not messing about with the screen, you'll notice that some of the detailing in the cabin is lovely jubbly, like this TFT instrument binnacle, like an Audi TT's got, and these interior lights, and these seats that hug you tight.
But aside from all those things, it just feels quality in here, kind of like a, well, nearly sort of like a Golf. All right, not quite. But it's definitely up there with the Seat Leon. And it's not just the knocking on the dashboard stuff, it's more like the way it goes along the road. It's like the driving position's really good, and if you've got a manual, the gear shift's really solid. It just feels like, well, not French. And all that good stuff applies lower down the Megane range, which is why the GT here, as much fun as it is, probably isn't quite worth the 25.5 grand asking price. And in fact, in reality, it's going to cost more. This one, 29 grand, because it's got suede seats and a Bose stereo and stuff like that. Now what that does is puts it in top end Ford Focus ST price bracket. And that's why the smart money goes on a mid-level diesel Megane. Much cheaper to run, surprisingly quiet the diesel, still looks good, 5-star safety, and most importantly, it's not going to be shaking anyone's ass. Can't write arse on the screen there so that the British viewers know that we don't mean like vibrating donkey.